Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Pieces guest speaker series as we finish off our four-part series here on the candidates that are running for treasurer, the election of the Law City Benchers, which will be happening over the next week or so. And later this month, we will have our newest treasurer elected. And today, now we are joined by Pam, who is running. So, Pam, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time and speaking with me here today. And maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and thanks for providing the opportunity, JP. About me, I grew up in London, Ontario. My parents divorced when I was very young, and from that point, about 5 years old, my mom raised me and my brother on her own. I'm someone who I think, like a lot of people who are in this profession and who are either lawyers or paralegals, I came to this profession in part because of the experience that I had, growing up. And for me, that involved in the years following my parents' divorce, my mom coming into and then having the strength to leave a violent relationship. So I became a lawyer because I really wanted to help people in moments when they needed legal help the most. And that sort of led me on a journey that's taken me across a good chunk of the province and through many different roles. I first ended up going to the University of Ottawa as an undergrad. I did my undergrad in political science, and it was at the University of Ottawa that I really got to learn about what it means to be within a francophone community, and that was a bilingual university. Alors, j'ai appris vraiment ce que ça veut dire vivre, travailler, avoir le droit de accès à la justice en français. And that was a really wonderful experience for me that I took into one of my next roles, which was working as a legislative advisor for Ontario's Attorney General. And I actually had the French language services of the justice sector policy file when I was in that office. I then went off to law school at Queen's University, and that took me to roles working for judges at three different levels of court before going on to private practice in Toronto at Stockwood. So I had a general litigation practice there for several years before I ended up moving over to the Women's Legal Education and Action Fund in 2021. I served as executive director and general counsel there up until June of last year. So I was responsible for all aspects of the organization as governance advisor to the board, responsible for fund development for the legal work in the courts, in legislatures, and public legal education as well. It was while I was at LEAF that I became a bencher in 2023. And since then, I've had the opportunity as a bencher to be involved in a number of different initiatives across different areas of the Law Society's work. And I did that as well during what I call a career sabbatical between the 8 months that started when I left LEAF at the end of June last year and led up to me joining Learners, where I'm a partner now in March of this year. And I highly recommend for those who are able to at any point take a bit of a step back from their practice and to think about what is really most important in life and where they want to go with their career. And where I wanted to go has led me to building a practice in public law and professional regulation, advising sexual assault survivors, and doing work advising boards on governance issues as well, building on my years of experience in that area. That's sort of the professional side of me today. And on the personal side, I live in Toronto with my wife, Kristen, and our young son, who I think I have successfully imparted upon a shared love of the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's going very well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all that, Pam. But I guess you touched on obviously becoming a bencher 3 years ago, but now you are looking at running for the treasurer position. So why are you running?
I'm running because I think we're at a critical moment for the Law Society. And there's an aspect of my answer to that question that relates to where I think we need to go as a Law Society and why I think I'm the right person to take us there. In terms of where we need to go, I think we need to be really focused on ensuring that the public and licensees see the Law Society as a competent, effective, and efficient regulator acting firmly in the public interest. And to do that, I think we need to focus on three key objectives, all the while ensuring that trust and confidence guide what we're doing. So the first objective that I've been talking about as I've been going through this experience is really putting the public interest at the center of everything we do. And this is where I think of people like my mom. I think public confidence in the legal professions is really tied to knowing that licensees serve their clients competently and that we, as the regulator, are going to hold our colleagues to account when they break the trust that's been placed in them by their clients. That's the first objective. The second objective is improving communications with benchers, with licensees, with the public, and with stakeholders as well. And I think we do that in part through increasing transparency. So on this, I really think the tone is set from the top. And we've taken some important steps in the right direction over the past year. But I think we need to continue to build on those. We need to build on creating strong relationships and open relationships with legal associations and with the government. And we also need to ensure that licensees see the Law Society as a resource as well, as a resource to help them maintain and improve their confidence, because I think the overwhelming majority of lawyers and paralegals in this province want to provide competent and effective legal services to their clients. And we can have a role not just ensuring competence, but also helping lawyers and paralegals maintain and enhance that competence as well. And then the third thing that I'd prioritize is striving for governance excellence. And I've really seen through my experience serving on and advising, whether it's local boards in Kingston and Ottawa through to national boards, I've seen the ways that strong governance really lend themselves to building trust in an organization, to making sound decisions, and also to making sure they effectively execute their mandate. And I think we've taken some important steps in the right direction on that at the Law Society over the past year or so as well. And it's something we really need to continue to build upon. So that's part of the answer to why I'm running as it relates to where I think we need to go. And as it relates to why I think I'm the right person to lead us there, there are three things I think. The first is the broad range of experiences that I had. And I talked a bit about that in response to the first question. I've had the experiences working in government, the courts, and private practice, in the nonprofit sector, really giving me a 360 view of the legal profession in the province that I think will be useful in the role of treasurer. The second thing is the depth of governance experience that I bring to the role, having advised and sat on a number of boards, having chaired the board of the City of Toronto Agency, the 519, having obtained my ICD designation from the Institute of Corporate Directors, and the leadership role that I've been able to play in some of the governance reforms that we've pursued collectively and implemented collectively at Convocation. And the third thing is, I think I'm somebody who has really built a strong track record, both at Convocation and outside of it, of pursuing consensus across differing opinions and really driving to get projects done. So those are some of the reasons why I made the decision to put myself forward for treasurer, and why I am sort of pitching as myself as the right person to sort of move us towards those objectives.
Perfect. Now, you're talking about going forward, but I mean, before we look forward, I mean, certainly the law study has undergone a number of significant changes over the last 3 years. So, if you can highlight one of those changes and share your thoughts on whichever one, what would it be, and why is it so important?
So I think I'd highlight the changes. So it's a set of changes that we've been able to drive through the work of the Governance Review Task Force. And I want to, emphasize that it's a collective effort. There's no one bench or one individual who shows up at Convocation and is responsible for driving forward initiatives. But I've been fortunate to play a leadership role on a couple of key things that have come through the Governance Review Task Force. The first is implementing the recommendations that were provided to us through the O'Connor report. And that included some key things like creating and effectively running a human resources and compensation committee. And we have excellent leadership on that committee now that's really ensuring that we're adhering to governance best practices there. We have implemented position descriptions for the treasurer, the CEO, and a revised role for the corporate secretary that's really going to help and has already helped us strive towards implementing better governance practices, which allow us to do the protection of the public work that's really at the heart of what we do at Convocation, and implementing additional best practices like taking proper minutes at committee meetings. Those are all things that are providing a solid foundation in terms of governance that I think has been very important for us to do coming out of the last year. And then the second thing is a more recent matter that we approved at Convocation, which is reducing the size of Convocation. So we're currently a very, very large board of 53 people plus the treasurer. In April, Convocation agreed to implement the recommendations coming out of the Governance Review Task Force to reduce the size of Convocation to 37 plus the treasurer, still a big board, but much more manageable than we have right now. All of that is going to require legislative requirements, and it's going to be important for the next treasurer to work with the Attorney General to try to shepherd those through the legislature. But I think at the end of the day, assuming that those are implemented, those are going to have some really important impacts on how Convocation runs and how effectively it governs in the public interest.
Now, going forward, then, what would be the first thing you would do, within your first, I mean, say 100 days, but really it's almost like 10 days because you kind of
Yeah.
already chairing a meeting within the first 10 days. So, what would be the first kinds of things you do within the first 3 months there as treasurer?
Well, it's interesting to note the first 3 months is really a third of the mandate for this treasurer term. So it's a significant chunk of time when you look at it in that context. The first thing that I would do is to sit down with our CEO and our corporate secretary and with the input of committee chairs, hammer out a work plan for Convocation. There is still a lot on our plates. Even though we're 3 years into our mandate, there's about 10 months left now. We need to be really methodical and thoughtful in moving projects that haven't yet been completed through to completion in this term. And having a concrete plan in place, ensuring that everybody is on the same page, that all benchers are aware of what's coming to them and when, is going to be key for us to get that work done. From there, management can really be able to implement and execute on allocating the resources that we need at Convocation to ensure that we get that plan put in place and we accomplish the things as benchers together that we need to get done in the short period of time that we have ahead of us.
So moving forward, I mean, as well, I mean, different people, I've talked to the other candidates as well. And what do you think is the most important aspects or qualities to be an effective treasurer? And how do those qualities overall align with your own leadership style?
So I wanted to frame my answer to this question in terms of what the role of the treasurer is at its core. I think a lot of people see the treasurer as sort of the face of Convocation, a spokesperson for Convocation, which that person is. But the treasurer is really the leader of Convocation when it comes to governance and ethics. The treasurer is responsible for setting the tone. The tone is really set at the top to ensure that we're making decisions effectively, ensuring that we have proper oversight of management, and ensuring that we actually have good governance practices in place to let us make those thoughtful decisions that are key to protecting the public interest. And in that context, I think that someone's experience and judgment, their character and their work ethic are really relevant to succeeding as treasurer. And the things that I think I bring to this role that are also consistent with what is important for the treasurer to be able to do is the ability to listen, the ability to ensure that people feel heard, the ability to surface diverse opinions, a broad range of opinions, and ensure that those are taken into account when we're making decisions. I think the ability to drive projects forward in a very methodical way to set priorities and really drive towards them together as a group is important. And I think it's also going to be important for someone in this role to be able to make tough decisions, sometimes unpopular decisions, in order to try to drive that work forward. And those are all things that I've had the opportunity to do in my leadership roles at Convocation to date, as well as generally in my leadership roles outside of Convocation too.
And so you touched on this there about sort of diverse views, and the treasurer has to essentially lead convocation where you have benchers with differing views. How do you build
Mhm.
consensus while still moving those important initiatives forward that you've touched on over the last 10 months of this term?
So, the first thing I want to say is that I think it is a very good thing that we have a wide range of views at Convocation. And those views are informed by people's perspectives on the world, by their experience in practice, by where they live in the province. And all of that is important to feed into the work that we do at Convocation. Anytime in any context where we're making hard decisions, where we are putting ourselves in echo chambers, that doesn't lead to good decision making. So again, coming back to the theme of the treasurer setting the tone, the way that I would lead is the way that I've already led in convocation, I think in other spaces as well, consistently drawing out diverse opinions, a broad range of opinions, ensuring that those opinions are given appropriate attention, that people who are part of the decision-making process have the opportunity to feel heard, to encourage those I'm working with to listen to different perspectives and to think about whether that changes how they see things. And in this context in particular, really encouraging people to keep the public interest at the front of their minds. In the current context of convocation, and I think really in any context at convocation, we're not going to have consensus on everything. We're only going to have consensus from time to time. And that's its own sort of challenge and reality to work through. I think somebody is going to have to ensure that they can continue to drive things forward, even where there's not consensus. And part of being able to do that is ensuring that people understand where we're going, where the points for input are, and that they understand that there's going to be a matter brought forward for decision. We're not going to sort of leave things hanging or let things go off track. I think that is going to be something very important for how the treasurer moving forward is going to kind of bring the diverse and diverging opinions towards decision for convocation over the next 10 months or so.
So with that in mind, then, what do you believe are the greatest opportunities and the greatest challenges currently facing the Law Society?
So I'm going to do one of those things where I say that the opportunity is the challenge. And I think I'd really identify rebuilding trust and confidence in the Law Society as that competent, efficient, and effective public interest regulator. That's both the challenge and the opportunity. And we're doing that, we're tackling that in an environment of, I think, generally increasing polarization, which is really difficult. And I think that if we are able to collectively work together as benchers, if we are able to focus on moving things forward, whether or not we are all in agreement on the ultimate outcome, we're able to focus on moving decisions forward to convocation over the next 10 months. If we're able to demonstrate an ability to get things done, to get hard things done. And if we're able to reach out and strengthen relationships beyond the walls of Osgoode Hall, relationships with legal associations, relationships with individual licensees, relationships with the government, I think we put ourselves in a good place or the best place possible to take advantage of that opportunity and to tackle what I'm also calling that challenge.
And one of the things that you've also mentioned already is the treasurer is seen as the face of the Law Society, and especially the board or the benchers there. And you've touched on some of the associations, but what are ways, maybe practically, to look at strengthening engagement and rebuilding this trust, as you've alluded to, between the Law Society, the licensees, and the general public?
I think the treasurer is perhaps the face of the Law Society, but it's important to acknowledge that there are a lot of talented and well-connected benchers around the table as well. People who have relationships in the communities in which they practice and the associations of which they're members. And I think that not just the treasurer, but the broader group of benchers has to be part of that project of strengthening engagement between the Law Society and the licensees as well as the public. I think that means working on building and leveraging those relationships, the existing relationships where they're there, of supporting our licensees understanding of the Law Society, both what we do at the Law Society and the experiences that they have in their own practice and how that is relevant to what the Law Society does. I think it's a two-way street, really, of communication and relationship building. And we have to understand that we need to go out, I think, and meet people where they are as part of kind of breaking down the disconnect between, or what I'll call the disconnect sometimes between Osgoode Hall and the average practitioner. That's really, I think, the approach to take to the professions. With the public, the engagement of the public, we see when we are receiving submissions in response to consultations, we generally have a lot less engagement from members of the public. And I have a theory that most people, when they think about lawyers, aren't thinking about the legal regulator. They're thinking about the individual paralegals and lawyers that they're engaging with or want to engage with when they are in a time of need, when they need legal assistance. What they want is to be sure that they have paralegals and lawyers who they're getting that advice and support from that are competent and that are going to act in their best interests. And I think that is the general orientation of most paralegals and lawyers across this province. And I think the public also wants to know that, as I said, I think I said earlier, that when some of our licensees, when our licensees break that trust that's been placed in them, they will be held to account. Those are really the things that I would want to forefront in our decision making, trying to ensure that because we don't have as much of that engagement with the public, we take on that additional responsibility as benchers to think about that in everything that we do. And we can always supplement that with efforts to, for example, strike focus groups where there are issues that require it, or to make additional efforts to reach out to members of the public, perhaps those who have had experience bringing forward complaints to the Law Society, and to understand their experience and their perspective of going through that process. But to me, at the end of the day, we really need to ensure that we as benchers build that trust and confidence on the part of the public by ensuring that their experience and their expectations, their, I'm going to say, right to have access to competent legal counsel is really front of mind in what we do.
Now, if you are elected, where would you like to see the Law Society a year from now? I mean, a year from now, I mean, there may be a whole new board elected,
Mhm.
right? But what do you like to see in terms of that group starting off, and what do you think is most important to step right now in terms of achieving that vision?
So I'm thinking of this question in terms of where I would like to see the Law Society right on that eve of the next bencher election, and as you put it, the sort of circumstances in which the next bench is stepping into their role at the Law Society. I would like to see us having achieved the major projects that are on our plate. Two of them that I think of sort of at the forefront are improvements to the lawyer licensing process to ensure that it is more rigorous and actually meets the standards that we want to set for those entering the profession. And the second thing is taking that governance reform that I talked about earlier across the finish line, ensuring those legislative amendments are made working hand in hand with the Attorney General, and to get other pieces of that reform to support convocation success in place. Part of that to me also means additional work to ensure a structurally sound convocation. And by that, I mean ensuring that we have committees and task forces in place that are fit for purpose so that the work of convocation and this more reduced convocation is appropriately supported by bodies that are doing that, study work that we all know boards have committees really tasked with. How are we going to do that? I think we need to have a process in place to take a look at what our structure is and to work with the new corporate secretary and the new CEO to ensure that we have improvements in place to sort of streamline work as it comes to convocation, ensuring that we are really driving towards convocation functioning like a Swiss watch, as I've been putting it in some conversations, and to ensure that we are sort of methodical and focused in setting out our priorities to create that structurally sound convocation that, again, is going to be able to make those decisions that are thoughtful and in the public interest in a timely way.
Thank you so much, Pam, for taking the time and talking with me today. The last question here is, you get an opportunity. Hopefully, some of your colleagues will tune in and listen to the interviews here. But what would you like the benchers to remember most about your candidacy when they cast their vote starting on Wednesday?
I would like them to remember, and I think they have this in front of mind, is that it's a serious responsibility that we have as benchers. We're fiduciaries of the Law Society. We play an important role in defending the rule of law and the independence of the bar. And it takes a collective effort to do that. And we have to be aware of the role of treasurer being one that is a role of some gravity. It's an important role, not just for the Law Society, but for the legal professions as well. And my message has been, as I've gone through this election campaign, that my breadth of experience that's relevant to serving as treasurer, and I talked about that a little bit earlier, that my objectives that I'm putting forward that we can focus on together, and that my proven ability to drive forward projects and really get things done and to get them done together is what I hope my colleagues will see as something I could bring to the table as treasurer to ensure that we tackle that important work together.
Perfect. So thanks once again, Pam, for taking the time and talking with me. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. And hopefully, whichever of the four of you who are elected will join me, maybe not 100 days from now, but kind of check in on how things are going. But I do think it's important that, whether it's with me, whether it's with some of the legal organizations and associations, that, everyone knows what's going on with the Law Society is certainly, I think, part of the role of being the treasurer. And I wish all of you the best luck. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. Take care.
Thanks, JP.